fastest show in sports.
The Miami Dolphins remain the biggest dumpster fire in the National Football League. Now, we could talk about a lot of teams that have gone 0-2, and we could talk about how they're suffering right now and a lot of the problems that are wrong. But for the Dolphins, this is a franchise that used to be a proud franchise. The Miami Dolphins used to be a very proud franchise. Used to be a franchise that you'd look at every single year and say, they've at least got a chance to get into the playoffs and maybe contend for the Super Bowl. That hasn't been true for 20 years. Sure, they get close every now and then, but they haven't won a playoff game since almost the turn of the century. And this is a franchise right now that is being beaten up from the inside out. That locker room is a complete and utter disaster at the moment, and the players know it, and that's why the players had a players-only meeting. Albert Grier from Sports Illustrated was appearing on the Rich Eisen show, and he had what might be, and if you listen closely, you'll hear him with a couple of things in there about this players-only meeting that really speaks to the problems with the Miami Dolphins right now.
From the captains to the rest of the team about accountability. And it was about accountability to each other and accountability to yourself. And more or less, it was the NFL is going to judge you regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your coaching. The NFL is going to judge you in a vacuum, and it's on everybody to take personal responsibility, and it's more or less closing ranks and saying this isn't about anybody else but the players. And sometimes that happens at the end for coaches, So I think like that message was received by the people in that by the players in that building. The tough thing I think for McDaniel, and I really like Mike as a coach, and I've known him a long time. Like I think the tough thing for him is this narrative has been there for the last 4 or 5 months. Like that some of the stars in that building ran wild over the last couple of years, and they spent some time this offseason in their roster building trying to clean all of that up, and that you would have this sort of issue after week one, and that sort of no-show in that week one game against the Colts, and now you're 0-2, I think only further fuels the narrative. The other thing that's just lingering out there is the fact that they're in the middle of, a sort of a soft rebuild. Teron Armstead retired. They traded Jalen Ramsey. They've moved now from the phase where they had 2 on the rookie contract into now he's on a big second contract, and so they're going to be gradually relying on more young players over the next couple of years. And when a franchise does that, the natural question for an owner to ask is, are these the people I want leading the rebuild?
One of the most salient things that Richard Grier said on the Rich Eisen show was when he talked about the players-only meeting for the Dolphins and the lack of confidence that he's in that locker room right now. And he said that happens at the end for coaches. That's the key takeaway here, because Mike McDaniel is out. He is not going to survive this season. Well, let me back up. He may, only because there's always one of the great questions. Every time somebody says, fire the coach, well, then who do you replace him with? I mean, sure, there's going to be assistant coaches that will be ready, but then is that what you want to base the rest of your season on? McDaniel is not going to make it. The thing that Grier also said when he talked about what the Dolphins are doing right now is correct. It's a soft rebuild. But it's a soft rebuild because Chris Grier is one of, if not the worst general managers in the National Football League. He's the guy who built this team. It wasn't McDaniel who built this team. McDaniel can say all he wants that he might have helped when it comes to draft choices. And I need this kind of player. I need this kind of talent on the team to succeed. But Chris Grier is the one that makes the decisions. He pulls the trigger. And so far, he has pulled every single wrong trigger. Now, somebody may come back and say, well, he got it right with Tyreek Hill. And you can also say maybe he got it right with Tua Tagovailoa. Now, let's take both of those individually. Hill is a brilliant wide receiver. He is also a cancer in the locker room. The people that I have spoken to who know that locker room intimately have told me without question that he's got a big mouth. He can't shut his big mouth. He rattles off in the locker room. He rattles off the teammates. And there's a lot of people on that team right now that have just about had it with Tyreek Hill. They know that he's an excellent talent. They know they cannot win without him, although that's subjective as well. But even though they need him, they don't want him there. There's a lot of players in the Dolphins who would just prefer that if you were able to get rid of Tyreek Hill, things would get better. Not necessarily because you're already at a culture where these players on this team, and you know why there's a soft rebuild? I'll get to Tua in just a second here. You know why there's a soft rebuild? Because a lot of the guys that were in that locker room last season were basically part of the mutiny against Mike McDaniel. McDaniel has completely lost that locker room. He hasn't had it last season. He didn't have it through training camp. He doesn't have it now. The players do not trust and do not see the confidence in McDaniel that they need to see. Think about other coaches in the National Football League, and I'm not going to name them, but you can go ahead and think about whatever coach you want. Think about coaches of winning franchises in the NFL. The players respect the coach. The players think the world of the coach. And while it's almost cartoonish in many ways, it's they will follow him into the fire. They will let him lead, and they will follow him wherever he may go. Nobody's going to follow Mike McDaniel. Nobody's going to be following him into the maw, into the fight, if you will. And a good reason for it is if you just listen to McDaniel, he's not a head coach in the National Football League. He cannot handle this. He's in over his head. He has been since the day he got there. He had all this resume material building up to get here as an assistant. But when you have just lost your second game of the year, when you are 0-2 on the season, and when you are facing, without question, an 0-3 start because you're going to Buffalo to face the Bills, what you don't want to hear and don't want to see, if you're a fan, if you're the owner, if you're the players on the team, you don't want to hear this in the post-game press conference.
Have you felt at all, or are you worried in any bit that your message and your voice isn't being received by the entire locker room just at the level it needs to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I develop confidence through my watching and seeing how players respond, and that's something that's always a part of my coaching process. And, I think if there was anything that would lend me to believe that messages weren't being received, then you address those things. That, to me, I think, I've seen a team that is trying to do everything they can to win, and coming up short and pressing forward and trying to change that result. So just based upon witnessing actions, that hasn't come across my plate until you asked.
This is the guy that you want as the leader in a leadership role for a National Football League franchise? Are you kidding me? He's in so far over his head, the man is drowning. There's a couple of things that you take away from that. What are you, 15 years old? You're a grown man. You can't put sentences together here as the head coach of a National Football League team when you're out there, when you're in front of the media, when you're facing the tough questions. This is the best you can do? Why does anybody find it surprising that when it comes down to what's in that locker room, this team doesn't trust him? There's nothing there to trust. The other line that you got to pick out, when he talks about developing confidence. You're a head coach in the National Football League. You've been here for a few seasons. You shouldn't be developing confidence. You should have confidence. You should be ready to get in there. You should be ready to stick your nose in the fight, and you should be ready to lead this team. That's what football is. It is a war. You've got to be tough about it, and he's not. He's not. Rex Ryan maybe didn't get it all right when he talked about him, but it was Rex Ryan, and there was somebody else on the show last week that talked about it. He's soft. Mike McDaniel's a soft coach. Hi. We're going to go out today, and we're going to try and win the game. We're going to do a nice job. Come on with me. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's fine. We're going to have a great time. Look, in the game against the Patriots, when the Patriots are scoring a touchdown late, Mike Vrabel is running down the sideline to keep up with his receiver. He's into the game. And he's a guy that you want leading the team. Mike McDaniel's not the leader. He needs to go. And look, this is nothing personal. I don't care. He never stole a freight train. I get it. But in the same breath, he's not a head coach in the National Football League. He will lose this job and he will forever be what he is supposed to be. He will be an assistant coach in the NFL, which is where he shines. But as far as making this guy the leadership of a franchise and the leadership role, out, gone. And as a matter of fact, here's one of those things, everybody always looks towards the bye week as a good time to make a coaching change. If and when, and I'm going to say when the Dolphins lose to the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night, you fire Mike McDaniel. You have to. You're 0-3. You're out of it now. There's about what? I don't even know what the statistical chance is here. About maybe what, 3 or 4% that you're even going to make the playoffs at this point? You got to start fixing this franchise now. And that's another problem. It comes down to Stephen Ross, the owner of this franchise, who has also made every single wrong move that he possibly can because he's not a football guy. He doesn't let someone run. He hires people to run the football, but they're awful. He hired Chris Grier, who hired Mike McDaniel right down the line. It's been a disaster because this guy doesn't know football, doesn't understand it, doesn't understand the need to put somebody in control who knows the game. He is just like Jerry Jones in Dallas, because Jerry can't keep from sticking his nose in to everything that goes on. He is the general manager, makes all the decisions. So maybe he's not entirely like Jerry, but he's got that kind of an attitude. If you want to succeed in the National Football League, you have to get the right people in there who can run the team, run the personnel, keep it moving, the leadership role, the guys you want to follow into the fire. Mike McDaniel? I wouldn't follow him into the fire if I had a fire truck behind me spraying me with water. I wouldn't go into a fire with him with 10 fire extinguishers in my hands. I'd never make it out alive. The Dolphins are a disaster franchise right now. And going 0-3 means you got to save this team right now. I mean, look, there's other teams out there that are 0-2 that you would almost expect them to be 0-2. Of course, I don't speak about the Kansas City Chiefs. That's another story altogether. But when you've got 0-2 teams, when you've got teams that are failing, you know they're supposed to fail. And the Dolphins are that team that starting the season, everybody thought was going to fail. And they were right. I talked about Tua. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned him. Tua Tagovailoa is not a bad quarterback. Yeah, I get it. I can hear it right now. Brickbats being thrown at the screen and at the phone because of his interceptions. I get that. But even good quarterbacks are intercepted when they don't have an offensive line that works well. And they have to push the ball. And they have to shovel it in places they normally wouldn't. And they don't see things. You've still got to have the offensive line. And yes, there is a big difference between a Tua and a Brady, or right now a Jalen Hurts. There's a big difference. He's not on that level. But he's still a good quarterback, and it still has the potential to be an explosive offense. But in the same breath, he doesn't have the offensive line. General manager again. Coaching again. He doesn't have the personnel. Look, Achane is an exceptional running back, but between Achane and Hill and a few others, you can't run every single play like that. You have to have some variety. They don't have the people. They don't have the wherewithal to be that explosive on offense. Sure, they face a bad defense, and they're going to be a whole lot better. But right now, it's the people in place. It's the Chris Griers of the world who screwed, blued, and tattooed this franchise and give them absolutely no reason to have any confidence whatsoever. And look, if you're a player and you want to join a team, you want to join a team where you've got a chance to at least contend for a Super Bowl. That's what it's all about. You don't want to get in there and just put in your 5 or 6 years. You want to have a chance at a championship. I want you to think for a minute, if you're a Dolphin fan or any fan of any franchise that's having problems, if you look at an owner who doesn't know spit from shinola about football and doesn't seem involved, to a general manager who's made all the wrong choices since he got there, maybe 1 or 2 good ones, but not enough to save his job, to a coach that isn't really really good at what he does, do you want to play there? No. You don't want to play there. You want to run from it as fast as possible. You want a chance to win. And maybe there was a time when Tua was taken, when they brought in Hill, when other players thought, okay, we got a chance. I'm going to take a chance on this team. Not now. Not now. Why would anybody take that chance? Why would anybody take a chance on the Cleveland Browns right now? Why would anybody take a chance on the New York Jets? Why would anybody take a chance on a team where they know they're not going to win, they're not going to contend for a Super Bowl, their career will go by the board, and they will never have experienced what you play the game for, to win a championship? It ain't the Dolphins. It's not under Chris Grier, and it sure as hell isn't under Mike McDaniel. Then we come to Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross, who is seen basically as an absentee owner. Sure, he's there in the skyboxes and he watches after the team a little bit, and he puts up this great front that he actually knows what he wants on the team. But obviously, even to the fans, he has no clue what he's doing, and the fans are now striking back. On social media this week, an absolutely brilliant post that I had to bring to everybody's attention. Now, this is fake, okay? See the big red letters on this? This is fake. It says, statement from the Miami Dolphins, statement from the chairman of the board, managing general partner Stephen Ross, allegedly coming from the Dolphins. I want to thank the players and coaches for their hard work yesterday, as well as the fans for their support. As the owner of this team, I am ultimately responsible for our success and failures. We fell short yesterday against New England, and I understand and share your frustration in our performance on the field. As we now look towards Week 3 at Buffalo, our football operation will continue to be led by Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel with my full support. However, here's where it gets good. Continuity in leadership is not to be confused with an acceptance that the status quo is good enough. We will take a hard look at where we have fallen short and make the necessary changes if need be. Until then, please empty our... you got to always wait for the payoff. Until then, please enjoy our rivalry uniforms and new food options at the stadium. And remember, tennis and Formula One racing will be here soon. I don't know who made this, but it's absolutely brilliant. They got it absolutely right to the point right now where it's Week 3. Not to be confused, the leadership factor is in here, but Ross also owns the stadium. They have a Formula One race that is there, which is massively popular every single year. They have a professional tennis tournament that's there that used to be down in Key Biscayne down south, but now it's up there. So they have tennis courts, a road racing facility, a Grand Prix facility, more importantly, and then the football stadium and everything else they do. Ross is just involved in all of this. He's making money hand over fist with all of these various ventures. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as far as fans of the Miami Dolphins are concerned, you got to be concerned with the football team. You want the football team to win. And right now, if Steve Ross is doing it, it ain't doing it. But the problem with it is you're not going to replace the owner. So you got to look at what are you going to replace? You have to replace the general manager and the coach. It is just that simple.
That's all, folks.